hemp legal again, the Amish in Lancaster moved fast. Reuben Reel, a young Amish farmer from Bart Township, founded Lancaster County Cannabis from his basement. He started with 1 pound of CBD flower and a handful of smoke shops. Within 4 years, he had contracts with Amish growers across the county. By 2023, his operation had moved 50,000 pounds of hemp product. He works with farmers who use no pesticides, no synthetic fertilizer. They harvest much of the crop by hand with horse-drawn equipment. They need no electricity to process it, and the quality commands premium prices from buyers in California and the Midwest. The Amish did not need a government program or a university pilot study to tell them what this plant could do. They already knew. They had known for 300 years. Now, if you already own a house and you are thinking this only applies to people with farms or people building from scratch, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. You do not need 40 acres. You do not need a barn. Here is what works on a regular property right now. If you own any diesel engine, a truck, a tractor, a generator, a water pump, you can run it on biodiesel made from hemp seed oil today. You buy cold-pressed hemp seed oil in bulk. You mix it with methanol and lye in a reactor. You can build from a used electric water heater for under $300. Plans are available online for free. The University of Connecticut tested this exact chemistry in 2010. Professor Richard Parnas and his team used virgin hemp seed oil and put it through standard transesterification in their biofuels laboratory. 97% of the hemp oil converted to biodiesel. Not 90, not 93. 97. It passed every laboratory test. It met American and European biodiesel quality standards, and it showed something nobody expected. It had superior cold weather performance. The hemp biodiesel could be used at lower temperatures than any other biodiesel on the market at the time. Parnas told reporters that if someone is already growing hemp, they might be able to produce enough fuel to power their whole farm from the seeds alone. One crop, one press, one reactor. Total energy independence. For your gasoline engines, hemp ethanol is more involved, but completely real and completely legal. The federal government issues a free fuel alcohol permit through the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau. You apply, you get approved, and you can legally distill ethanol for use as motor fuel on your own property. You are not making drinking alcohol, you are making fuel. The equipment is a small still and a fermentation tank. People build them in their garages. The process is the same one moonshiners used for centuries, except you are not hiding from anyone. You have a federal permit on your wall. The ethanol you produce can be blended with gasoline at 10 to 15% and used in any standard gasoline engine without a single modification. That is exactly what E10 and E15 already are at the pump. You would just be making your own supply instead of buying someone else's. And here is what nobody tells you. In Brazil, they figured this out in the 1970s. Brazilian cars ran on blends containing up to 24% ethanol. Millions of vehicles, decades of use, no engine failures. The technology is not experimental. It is proven. It has been proven for 50 years in another country. The only thing missing in America was the legal right to grow the crop. Now you have it. Here is the math. 1 acre of hemp produces roughly 700 pounds of grain. Press that and you get about 22 gallons of oil, which converts to approximately 20 gallons of biodiesel. That is enough to run a diesel generator for weeks or keep a farm tractor moving through planting season. That same acre gives you over 5,000 pounds of stock. The stalks produce cellulosic ethanol through fermentation and distillation. Between the biodiesel from the seeds and the ethanol from the stalks, 1 acre of hemp feeds both types of engines from a single harvest. Now, before I show you what happened in 1937 and why 2,000 fuel stations vanished from the Midwest in a single year, I need to point you somewhere. Because the question I get more than any other is not about hemp. It is this: where do I find all of this in one place? The stove, the wall, the water system, the fuel. Every Amish method I have covered across this channel with exact materials, exact quantities, and exact steps for a home you already own. I put it together. It is called the Amish Home System. The link is in the description, but stay here, because what happened in 1937 is the reason you have never heard of any of this. And the man behind it is a name you already know. Scale to 5 acres and you have real meaningful fuel production for a homestead, 10 acres, and you are approaching energy self-sufficiency for a small farm. Austrian farmers figured this out years ago with seed oil cooperatives. They press canola and sunflower into biodiesel for their own trucks and tractors. They do not ask permission from an oil company. Nothing stops an American landowner from doing exactly the same with hemp. Nothing except 80 years of deliberately enforced silence about what this plant can do. And that brings me to the piece I have been saving, the one I found in a magazine archive that almost nobody opens anymore. This is the part I promised you at the beginning. In February 1938, Popular Mechanics published an article with the headline, "New Billion-Dollar Crop." The article was about hemp. It described a new machine called a decorticator that could process hemp stalks cheaply and at industrial scale. The article said hemp could produce more than 5,000 products from the herds of the stalk alone, plus textiles, food, and fuel from the rest of the plant. It called hemp the standard fiber of the world and predicted it would create thousands of jobs and an entirely new agricultural economy. Here is what makes this document devastating. The article was published 5 months after the Marijuana Tax Act had already gone into effect, 5 months after the law that killed the industry. The most widely read mechanics magazine in the country was telling American farmers they were sitting on a billion-dollar crop. The editors did not know the law had passed. That is how quietly Anslinger and his allies buried it. By the time the article hit newsstands, it was already illegal to grow the crop it celebrated. The future was announced at its own funeral, and nobody in the room knew it. The timing was not a coincidence, it was a consequence. The men who wrote the law knew exactly what they were killing. They just made sure the rest of the country did not find out until it was too late, 80 years too late. Until a piece of paper called the 2018 Farm Bill quietly undid what 4 powerful men had done in 1937, and almost nobody noticed that either. The Amish did not read that article. They did not attend Ford's Chemergy conferences or Parnas's laboratory at Yukon. They did not need anyone's permission to understand a plant they had grown since before the revolution. They kept the knowledge the way they keep everything quietly, practically, passed from one generation to the next without anyone writing it down in a journal or publishing it in a study. Rudolf Diesel designed an engine for plant oil and disappeared from a ship before he could give it to the British Navy. Henry Ford built a car from hemp and ran it on hemp fuel and watched the law kill both. 2,000 Agrol stations sold plant-based fuel to Midwest drivers and were sabotaged into closure. A magazine told America about a billion-dollar crop 5 months after the law buried it, and through 80 years of silence, the Amish kept growing. You were never supposed to know any of this. Not the 97%, not the 2,000 stations, not the magazine that arrived after the funeral, not the engine that was stolen from plant oil and handed to petroleum. You were supposed to keep driving to the gas station, keep watching the price climb every winter, and never ask who decided it had to be that way. The Amish asked that question 300 years ago, and they answered it with a seed. If you are the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do next. I want to hear from you. If you could grow 1 acre of hemp this season, what would you fuel first? Your truck, your tractor, your generator? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and your answers decide what we cover next. Hit subscribe, not for me, for what comes next. Because in the next video, I am going to show you what the Amish build from the part of this plant that never gets burned, and the industry it threatens is even bigger than oil.